Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the last session before the happy hours. So we're going to start very quickly, jump into the discussion, and I'm going to ask each of the panelists to introduce himself, herself, in a few minutes. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Tu peux nous mettre le micro?
My name is Bernhard. I'm working for the European Union, and especially for the Department for Maritime and the Blue Economy.
Bonsoir, mon nom est Yves Grimard, Investissement Québec.
Isabelle de Cremoux, CEO of Seventure Partners. We have one of the European leader in venture capital.
Bolduc, Investment Manager for Desjardins Venture Capital. So we are Quebec-based venture fund for high-tech companies, including, of course, the Maritime biotech.
So during the entire day, we had a conversation about, how we're going to finance this blue economy and the blue growth. And we went from, very high level, and I would take the opportunity to use this session to address the issue of entrepreneurs. So as an entrepreneur, when I want, to finance my project, I'm facing kind of a difficult time. So this session, with a banker, with a private venture fund, with Investissement Québec, which is a government body, and the European Commission, so we'll have, all the answer we expect. To Bernhard, to draw a line, and maybe you can tell us, in a nutshell, what we can expect, from the blue bioeconomy perspective. What are we talking about, and what is the need in terms of financing for the SMEs? Yeah, take it.
Okay, thank you, Pierre. I'd like to start by saying that I had some really, really interesting conversations today. And I'm very heartened by that, and there are some really brilliant, entrepreneurs out there who, for me as a non-expert, they seem to be doing great things. And practically everyone who came, at least from Europe, was telling me that at the source of what they're doing is some European research grant. So it seems to me that actually we're doing something. They must be doing something to support research and development through our research programs. And I think the problem at the same time that I'm hearing is that when the research grants come to an end, there is no follow-up, and there is sometimes a need to take these new technologies and new products to the market, or to conceive the products and take them to the market. It's true there is a gap, I think, and we have a few ideas how to plug the gap, but maybe we come back to that in a minute.
Absolutely. So, Isabelle, I'm going to jump directly to Isabelle. Yeah, take the mic. And tell us, what is Seventure first?
So Seventure is financing innovation. We finance innovation all over the world. We started with France, we expanded to Europe, then we started to invest in Asia, Israel, and North America. We invest in innovative business from seed stage to growth capital, as long as they are providing a new service or a new solution that answers a market with a defined business plan.
And, you've been at BioMarine for years, like me. And how do you see the evolution? Because at first we're talking about the blue biotech. It was kind of a dream, a very weird concept. Do you have the feeling that now it's becoming a mature industry, and are we ready, to jump into the pool?
So the blue economy, as a field, started a long time ago, more than a decade. But what we observe as venture capital is that for new trends or a new field, it really starts to speed up when terminology is found. And blue economy as a term, as a word, is more recent than the field itself. And that's something that sounds really simple as an observation, but that is something that we have observed in any new sector and any new wave. In the first days, there are many, many words to characterize the same field. And then at a point, then everybody converge in naming the field with a common terminology. And I think this day has occurred for blue economy. Now, of course, blue economy includes many different segments, which are very different from one to the other, different in terms of time to market, time to exit, amount of cash that is needed to finance the activity, and of course also region of the world where the supply chain can be obtained. And the fact that in this conference this year, compared to the previous years a decade ago, there are many people coming from all over the world. It started to converge as a more mature, I wouldn't say this word maybe, but a more mature field where now real company can attract a lot of money and grow. So I would say yes to your question.
That was the kind of answer I was expecting. Eric est un banquier, donc ne partez pas, restez là, parce qu'il fait partie de ces banquiers qui cherchent des possibilités d'investissement et de support à l'investissement. Eric, peux-tu nous parler en 2 minutes de ce que fait la Caisse Desjardins et pourquoi la Caisse Desjardins s'intéresse au secteur bleu?
Oui, alors Desjardins, la plus grosse coopérative financière au monde, a un bras de capital risque pour lequel je travaille. Donc, c'est un fonds qui date déjà d'une quinzaine d'années. Il est rendu à 2 milliards de dollars. Puis, en réalité, on a 7 fonds d'investissement sous gestion pour les entrepreneurs, dont un qui est spécifiquement pour les technologies, Desjardins Innovatech. Donc, ça dit innovation technologique. Alors, ce fonds elle s'adresse à toute technologie confondue, mais évidemment, on aimerait beaucoup pouvoir s'en servir aux biotechnologies marines. Puis en même temps, ça nous favoriserait l'investissement ici dans la région. Donc, c'est quelque chose qu'on suit de très près. On vient régulièrement, on regarde ce qui se fait dans le monde et on a beaucoup d'appétit et d'intérêt envers ce secteur qui, pour nous, est quand même très jeune, mais quand même, c'est quelque chose qu'on voit là, en croissance, puis on est...
D'accord. Un dernier tout petit the last round on table before we jump into the real, question and challenges. Yves, you're from Investissement Québec, and what is your principal mission and what are you expecting, because you're based in Europe, in Asia, in Middle East. So the purpose of Investissement Québec is to attract, of course, people, towards Quebec. But what are the tools you're using and what is the purpose of Investissement Québec abroad?
Yes, so the purpose of having offices abroad is to try to meet those companies who want to go international and tend to come to North America and then try to convince them that Quebec is the best place to be to start opening the North American market. So this is why we have offices in Asia, Europe, and United States.
Okay, good. So I'm an entrepreneur. I survived the last 2 first years, and now my company is becoming a reality. I need more cash to develop. I'm facing some serious issue because commercialization is very difficult, it's very expensive. So which of you should I talk to? And you're going to answer each in a row.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You should talk to all of us because it's not a single player that will provide the full solution. Even for ourselves as venture capital, we like to syndicate with other funds. First to share the risk, but also to add more expertise and value and help the entrepreneur to make a real success. So what we have in mind is always to have success, and we will put all the elements together to achieve this ultimate goal. So if you have success...
Pratiquement, Eric, pratiquement. Donc on vient vous voir. On a besoin de financement. Quels sont les outils que vous mettez sur la table pour un entrepreneur comme on l'a vu, on a nos amis de Biomimetics, on a plein de startups ici, CRBM, qui sont en phase d'expansion. Donc, on vient vous voir. Quels sont les outils qu'on met sur la table et comment on passe au stade plus
Ouais.
élaboré.
Donc, première condition pour Desjardins Innovatech, c'est d'avoir au moins la moitié des employés de l'entité dans laquelle on investit qui résident au Québec. Ça, c'est une
D'accord,
condition
ok.
du fonds. Une fois que ça c'est respecté, nous, on peut investir de 250 000 $ à 5 millions par entreprise. Et le ticket moyen pour un premier investissement est entre 250 000 et 1 million de dollars. Puis on a dit tout à l'heure qu'on voulait se syndiquer, donc on veut toujours au moins avoir un autre joueur avec nous. Donc on parle de des rondes de financement typiquement là, de l'ordre de 1 million de dollars à 3 millions de dollars pour une ronde A, pour ceux qui sont
D'accord,
familiers
donc
avec
là on est déjà dans le growing stage, on n'est plus vraiment dans
Oui,
l'early stage.
le produit est déjà très avancé. On est typiquement à moins d'1 an de la commercialisation. Donc là, on peut intervenir à ce stage-là pour finaliser le produit, l'homologuer, puis faire vraiment le lancement commercial.
Bon, très bien. On va revenir là-dessus, Eric. Isabelle, tu interviens à quel niveau?
Before I answer to explain exactly what we see Venture are looking for in terms of amount, etc., I'd like to give a piece of advice to the entrepreneurs in the room. Generally, entrepreneurs spend a lot of time thinking about the product or the solutions that they are developing. And they are spending significant time to think, what is my product solving as an unmet need? Who I will sell this product to, etc., etc. So, in other terms, the marketing of the product. But how many hours do they spend on the marketing of their company? In other terms, what is my company selling to the venture capital or the bank community? How does it differ from the other company that those people would have met in the morning just before me? How am I differentiating? What is the unique selling proposition that my company is providing to those people? Why would they invest in me? And I would recommend that the entrepreneurs spend some time in doing their marketing of their own company. Some of them will actually have a breakthrough innovation and will provide a USP that is very high risk, very high reward company. But not everybody wakes up in the morning with a breakthrough innovation idea. So most of the company are developing new products or new solutions that are answering unmet need, but without necessarily being breakthrough. For those companies, are they offering to the venture capital or the bank community a quick win, like a quick exit and a quick return on the money? Are they offering a low-risk profile? I mean, all of those profiles are potential good candidates for an investor. But the worst situation is when you present something that is not adequate to your own unique selling proposition, because then you're going to fail. You're going to show your company with one perspective, and that it's not what is providing to venture capitalists. So that is really an advice that I recommend, because about 90% of the people coming and see us have not spent the time in thinking what is the marketing of their own company. And then once you have found it, then keep saying it. Keep letting other people know and raise awareness not only about your products, but about your company.
Mais Isabelle, est-ce que le marketing d'approche par rapport à un fonds d'investissement, et je trouve que c'est très intéressant ce que tu dis, est-ce qu'il ne faut pas être sélectif finalement par rapport au fonds d'investissement?
Yes.
Et au lieu de diffuser très large, est-ce qu'il ne faut pas se spécialiser sur un petit
That's
nombre?
exactly it. Once the entrepreneurs have understood what their unique selling proposition is, the basis of marketing is address the clients that are suitable to your offer. Because if you are a very high risk and high reward company, don't go and see low risk taker, because you're going to waste your time, and vice versa. Don't go to see ultra specialist venture capitalist if you have a low risk, purely commercial plan of development. So indeed, choose the people you're going to see depending on what's your value proposition.
Ah, ça c'est très intéressant. Bernhard, moi je voudrais qu'on saute justement à la partie, je dirais, un petit peu européenne, qui s'occupe juste des investissements dans les SMEs. Comment on back up ces entrepreneurs qui ont été voir Isabelle, qui sont pas tout à fait en adéquation, et ils savent pas si, de l'autre côté, leur projet a une chance d'être accepté à la commission. Donc j'ai l'impression qu'on est dans une logique où on essaie d'arroser très large essayer d'avoir de l'argent en se disant de toute manière, on aura bien quelque chose de la Commission européenne. Et si on a quelque chose de la Commission européenne, peut-être qu'après, on pourra aller plus loin et aller voir d'autres fonds d'investissement. Comment la Commission peut s'adapter un peu plus à cette mentalité des entrepreneurs et comment on peut les aider à être beaucoup plus efficaces dans leur approche?
Good question. I think the first thing indeed I would advise is to see people like Isabelle actually, because they know what works and what venture capital providers actually ask for. And I think you have the experience of helping companies and bringing them back to the market.
Yeah, but she has no time.
So, I've actually had in the conversations I've had today, which I'm really grateful for. I've asked that question to quite a number of my partners. You know, who you're selling to, and actually what's your selling proposition, and you get quite different replies actually, which is very interesting. It is not for us to judge really, but I would say the following: if you're somebody in a traditional business, there should be plenty of opportunities. If you're doing something very innovative, there are very few things that we can offer to help, and they are few. And maybe, as I said at the beginning, we need to create more there. All right. So one very concrete thing I could say is that we are putting out 2 calls for what I call demonstration projects. Mm-hmm. One in November this year. We'll have a presentation on the 9th of November. You can watch it on the internet with a very small amount, I think 8 or 9 million euro, and a bigger one in 2018 worth 18 million euro. And we'll do basically what we'll do is we'll condition the support on bringing in private funding. So we'll fix a multiplier, and by doing that, you know, if you bring some banks along or some funds along, you will get the grant. This is, of course, these are small amounts. This is peanuts. So I think we really have to think and to establish whether we need to position ourselves better here. As you know, in Europe, there is a pot of about 60 billion euro that is designed to be leveraged with private funding up to 300 billion euro for infrastructure investment. And it is true that until now, European Investment Bank, those who administer that fund, have kind of stayed away from the more risky investments. So I think the task we have, and that's not an answer to someone who is coming to see me now, but maybe someone who's going to come and see me in 2018, 2019, is whether we can position ourselves to grab a little bit of that fund and to put it into something which could be a maritime blue economy investment fund, basically. Mm-hmm. If we get there, I can't tell you here now on this stage, certainly won't commit myself to that, but if we convince our financiers that there's a need for that, we'll give it a shot.
Okay. Et la position d'Investissement Québec, c'est à peu près la même, c'est-à-dire que est-ce qu'on peut accompagner des entrepreneurs, en fait, qui sont dans une démarche de partager leur capital ou d'essayer d'aller plus loin dans le deuxième tour de table? Est-ce que Investissement Québec peut arriver aussi à ce moment-là et supporter ces entrepreneurs?
Enfin, Investissement Québec, c'est une société d'État. Donc, l'objectif, c'est d'aider au développement économique de la province. On sait que l'épine dorsale de la province, ce sont les petites et moyennes entreprises. D'ailleurs, chaque année, on a à peu près 2000 opérations de prêt que nous autorisons. Moi, je dis souvent, c'est comme une machine à saucisses. Vous imaginez un comité de crédit à chaque semaine là, qui autorise des transactions qui varient entre 50 000 $ et quelques millions de dollars. Le prêt moyen est 600 000.
On est sur du prêt, là.
On est sur du prêt. On est sur du prêt. Investissement Québec est principalement une institution financière prêteuse. Nous avons des opérations de capital de risque, mais le ticket d'entrée est plus élevé, comme de raison. C'est un peu comme chez Desjardins ou Madame à côté. Le ticket, c'est 2 millions.
D'accord.
Il faut comprendre qu'une opération d'investissement dans du capital de risque demande une analyse exhaustive. Pour poursuivre avec vous, il y a 4 éléments qui sont importants pour les financiers. Le management, le produit, la production et la finance. C'est un ensemble des 4 éléments. Il y en a probablement d'autres, mais on les décline. Mais il faut que ces 4 éléments-là fonctionnent pour qu'un banquier s'intéresse à votre dossier ou un investisseur. Donc, chez Investissement Québec, on est surtout une institution financière prêteuse. il arrive que nous aidons, c'est sûr, les entreprises à trouver du capital. Et si nous ne pouvons pas le faire, nous sommes des partenaires dans 70 fonds de fonds. Donc là, des fonds généralistes, des fonds spécialisés. Donc on est en mesure d'aider l'entreprise à la diriger là où la personne plus spécialisée dans son domaine serait en mesure de lui fournir soit le capital ou les éléments importants de façon à bien se préparer pour obtenir les fonds.
D'accord. Donc je reprends le cours. I'm coming back to my first idea. I'm an entrepreneur, and I come to Isabelle. Isabelle, is it worth it to come to you if I need 500K, or what is the minimum ticket that decently you can claim, or ask, for?
So for Seventure, indeed, the minimum amount for investing in equity is $500,000. So indeed, 500K is okay, but that's our minimum. And we can invest 10 million per round of financing and potentially even 20 million per company. So this amount really depends at what stage of maturity the company will be. If it's early stage or seed stage, the perceived level of risk would be higher. Therefore, we will be willing to invest a smaller amount until the company has made some progress and some steps forward. And then we can refinance and follow up until it goes to an exit.
Quels sont tes ratios en termes de demande pour un investisseur qui vient te voir? Qu'est-ce qu'on leur demande en retour par rapport à un investissement?
So another advice indeed that I would give to entrepreneurs is that when people knock at our door, and we are analyzing in life sciences only about 900 opportunity of investment per year and about the same amount in digital opportunities. So that's a lot of number of company per year, and we probably invest in less than 20. So the selection process, of course, is thorough. Now, the interesting perspective that an entrepreneur should have is that when we see a company, the question is not do we invest or don't we invest. The question is, do we invest in this one or the other? Which is a totally different question. It's not that the project is good or bad. Is this project better or worse than the other opportunity that knocked at our door? And that's why the USP that I was telling in the first place is so important. Then, what is expected from a company is linked to our own business model as a venture capital. We venture capitalists are not using our own money. We are raising funds from investors that have requirement in terms of return on capital. And if we venture capital as a company would like to continue to exist and to grow, we'd better provide them the expected return on investment that they're expecting. That is as simple as that. Therefore, when we invest in a company, knowing that the higher risk of them will have an attrition rate, not all of them will perform as we initially thought they would, the performing ones will have to balance for the non-performing ones so that we deliver a global portfolio track record of above 15% per year. So you can imagine how much we have in mind when we meet with you as to the expected IRR.
Okay. And, well, Eric, over, let's say, how many cases you check, per year, companies, how many?
I receive one business plan per day, on
Per day.
average. So over 200 business plans per year. And we, as you said, we end up with about 20 investments. So 1 out of 10.
Okay.
So it's not that the projects, some are not, under the passing mark, but many would pass. But again, in the context of limited funds and also of the returns that we have to provide to our commanditaires, then we are very selective on the best projects. And you always have to make sure when you present that you have a good opportunity, a good plan, the right team to execute it, and also in your financial requirements that you ask for enough money to reach your next valuation level. Many times we see people coming to us and not asking enough money. You need to you need to be sure to reach the next valuation level before you get to the next round of financing. So that's a very important step.
Bernhard voulait faire un commentaire là-dessus.
Yeah, I would just like to add, the European Commission is running a program that's a little bit similar to what you're doing, which is called the SME instrument. You may know that, some of you may know that. I didn't mention it before because it's not specifically for maritime, it's a general, but the idea is to take the research projects that we have funded and give them an extra boost of risk capital to go to the market. And I'm just mentioning that because the success rate is about the same that you mentioned. It's about 1 in 10, basically, in that selection process.
Et au niveau de Investissement Québec, Yves, c'est à peu près les mêmes ratios?
As I mentioned before, the basis of our financial tools is financing. So it has nothing to do with capital risk. I mean, capital risk is marginal in terms of our operations.
Yeah, that's right.
So no, I think the rate is much higher than that because it's financing.
Yeah.
And loans start at $50,000, so people don't need to have much capital in order to have access to our financing.
I don't know if you have the numbers, for the equity part, at Investment Québec, because I know that you're also acting as a private equity and fund of fund. So just roughly, is it, the same ratio we're talking?
Yes,
okay.
It's about the same thing, 1 out of 10 that we do go ahead.
So at this time of the debate, is there any question coming from the room? Yes, Vince. Yeah, grab the phone, grab the mic and ask your question. So introduce yourself.
My name is Vincent Penner. I'm the Senior Vice President of Global Business Development for Clean Culture Lab. So thank you for your seminar here or your debate. 2 questions. The first question is, you mentioned balancing your portfolio. What is your success rate? If you had to look at, if you take 20 companies, out of those 20 companies, how many make it and how many fail?
That's very interesting. I guess...
I don't know about your stats.
Either Isabelle or Eric, yes. Maybe both.
I would say in the higher risk sector, high risk, high reward, we aim to have 1 or 2 out of 10 that make a great success and that will compensate for all the others. So out of 10, you would have 2 that go with a very nice exit, 6 that do okay, but not the great returns you were expecting, and the rest will just bankrupt or...
Isabelle?
Yeah, but the same range. So the 2 or 3 will make more than times 5. That's what we call good exits. So time 5 is what we invested cumulatively. And there are probably like 10% or 15% that will really be non-performers.
Okay. My second question is, I've been in the personal care industry for 36 years. It's ever-changing. My advisory team is from some of the top people in the industry. Who does your vetting for you? How do you know if you are on to something? When I go to make a deal or look at technology, I bring in industry experts to evaluate to make sure we're going in the right direction. Who does that for you?
That's a key question. Isabelle?
That is the heart of what we're doing. And we have internal experts internally. So taking your example of healthcare, we have physicians, researchers, IP specialists, regulatory people that are within a team that is doing the internal due diligence for us. Then we have other people that are on the field scouting new deals. And then the third category of people that we have internally are the investors, meaning the people will be responsible for a deal from the sourcing to the negotiation of the deal, taking the board seat and down to the exit. Once we have internally analyzed and made our own due diligence, and once we have signed a term sheet, then under term sheet exclusivity, we may want to add an external expertise additional to what we did from external specialists of this particular field.
I knew I was only going to ask 2, but I got one more. Do you notice, again, I've been doing this a long time, trends used to last back in the 80s, 5 years. Then in the 90s, it was 3 years. And then in the early 2000s, the trends would last a year. Now the trends are lasting 6 months. Do you find that a bit challenging? For instance, our company, I put a group of millennials together. I have a millennial advisory group because the way I shop, the way we develop, the way we create products, I mean, I just find it ever-changing. So from a financial standpoint, do you find the same thing? And thank you. I'll let you answer.
You're very right that the trends are speeding up. And that is exactly the reasons why, for example, in digital, would have students as intern extensively to represent future users and future technology. And in life science, we're spending significant time in looking at the simple indicators reflecting society changes, such as how many times people are Googling some sort of concepts, how many books on Amazon doing for consumer, not for physicians, are being sold in certain trends. I mean, how many physicians would actually pick this specialty rather than another one when they graduate? How many patents are published and we follow the trends on each field? How many publications from the scientific review are published and we are looking for trends? And that's how we identify before they even are popping up with classic business signal, the low signal for an emerging trend. That's exactly how we identify the field before they are visible to others, and we tend to pioneer in investing in those companies that will actually have solutions to an emerging market.
Maybe I can add on this. This is why we are there, the venture capital. You could rely on organic growth and, make it yourself without giving any equity to us. Why would you do so? It's because we all know that technologies don't last forever. And our role is to get you in as fast as we can so that you can take profit of the window of opportunity that you have, which is maybe not so long. So our objective, and this is why in your syndicate of investors, you should always aim for people who have deep pockets. Because if you need to accelerate, the last thing you want to hear is lack of money. So your financial people need to be there to react. And our role, myself, I always make sure that I push the company. Of course, they have to be willing and to be set up for such growth. But we won't be the ones who back off for that. We will push them as fast as they want and they can to reach their market before the opportunity dries out.
I would like to, understanding the conversation, like to move to another key point, the board constitution. Most of the company, when they start, they have a project and they want to be the CEO, the CSO, they want to be the human resources, they want to be pretty much everything. What would be the advice that all of you can give to the young entrepreneur in terms of structuring their board? What would be the use of a good board, and what is the role of the board, when they pitch in front of you and when they start, to grow their company? Who wants to start with that?
The board, if it's set up properly, is a very powerful tool. You can have extremely high expertise on the board, and it's basically cheap labor. What you pay to the board members is nothing compared to the input and the contacts that they have and what they can bring to you. So we value the board of directors as a very valuable tool, and we are extremely careful in the selection. When we invest, you typically require one seat, and I don't take the seat. I will get an external person that will be complementary to the existing board members and really to add value. And I will make sure that there is a good fit with the promoter, because if there's no fit, it won't work. But this, again, if it's set up appropriately, the board of directors is an extremely powerful mean of achieving success.
Nothing to add? No? No?
Well, I would say that, this is true when you want to raise capital with a fund. I'm coming back to a lower level when people want to have financing. Management is a key element. It's always there where the loan officer, it's easy to look at the numbers. It's easier, not that easy for the products and, if you have the market. But at the end of the day, it's the guy who will manage the shop or the team. So it's always very important because this is where the emotions gets in, and you have a feeling if that person has the depth and the entrepreneurship willing to make it a success. So a single person, it's always more risky than when you have 2 or 3 persons knowing that you can share the risk and he is not the one-man shop trying to do everything.
Is it the same thing, Bernhard, in the SME program at the European level? When you invest and when you put money on the table for this company, are you carefully checking, what is behind the scene, what kind of board, what kind of structure? Is it the same principle of checking for credential and references?
I think for the SME program, we, to my knowledge, use a very similar approach that you use, including bringing external experts. Okay. So every proposal is evaluated on the basis of real experts in the field, and I think we probably do that very differently from how you do it. I'm not really familiar with that in great detail, but I would suppose it's more or less the same approach.
Okay. Now I want to talk about the. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
I wanted to add one more thing. Something that, as an entrepreneur, you may not think of. When we meet with company, it is almost never the case that the company is satisfying all our criteria. Most of the time, when we look at the combination of quality of management, quality of IP, quality of product, size of market, duration of time to exit and time to market, etc., etc., there's almost never the time when a company satisfies every criteria. And whenever it is, then the valuation is not adequate. So it is extremely rare indeed that it satisfies every criteria. So what is our job? Is to determine whether the fact that one of the criteria is not fully satisfied is solvable. And whether once we invest, we're going to solve this and help the entrepreneur to solve his weakness. And there is always weakness. At the same time, and if we were to eliminate every company that were not satisfying all criteria, then we would be out of business because we will invest in nothing. So this is a tricky decision at our side. In addition, the other task that we have when we meet with an entrepreneur is not to have too much a priori on a new market, something that potentially we don't know anything about, or a new technology solution, or a style of entrepreneur, or any of those criteria. And as an anecdotal story, when I started to do this job after a long time in the life science industry, when I joined venture capital, I met with a venture capital veteran who actually told me that what the most intense memory that he has about this business that he was doing for 25 years was when one time when he was starting to do his job, he met with an entrepreneur who was very, very young, long hair, not completely the style you would expect from a classic entrepreneur, and explaining his project that he wanted to work on completely changing the way circus was done. Wow. That was not exactly the high-tech segment that a venture capitalist would dream of. And he kicked him out saying, no way, I'm not going to invest. And it has become Cirque du Soleil. So when this guy actually told me that story, it was just to teach me that when you meet with an entrepreneur, get rid of your a priori and just listen to the story and get convinced.
This is key. Henry, you have a question. Go to the mic.
Erwes of Energy Francomonde. We are a French association, but I'm German. Reflecting with the workshop of this morning, where we were in a similar, smaller group, I've got a question to Yves Grimard and Madame de Cremoux. If I understood your colleague right, your colleague Eric this morning, you in a way, I think he even used the term of a social investor. Your main objective is to create jobs in Quebec. Now, I've read that your entity, Madame de Cremoux, is subsidiary, as you will, of a bank. So I think a big problem of the sector is, and therefore they need a Pierre Erwes to get everybody together, because banks have BAL 2 and BAL 3 and all these regulations, and they don't give money to these wonderful projects. 71% of the world surface, and a lot of these things are working, but bankers don't give the money. So haven't you got the problem because you're a subsidiary of a bank?
My answer is going to be very, very quick, is that the money we're managing does not come from the bank at all. So we don't have the ratio. So no. So we're completely independent in terms of fund managing.
That was a quick answer. Thank you, Henry, for the question. Okay. Before we go to the conclusion, I would like, to talk about the exit strategy. This is an important point, and most of the entrepreneurs, they are scared about, going public or having, some bigger dreams. We would like, to start from the financial point of view. When you're not directly concerned, with the equity, but Eric, you start with that.
Typically, in our equity deals, we have a clause to exit after 7 years. But we are patient, and the market knows that we are patient. Just to give you an example, we sold a company 2 months ago. We were in for 12 years, and they had the clause for 7 years. So basically, if we put all those years bringing value to the company, we won't scrap all this work when we reach the anniversary date of our investment. So we are patient. We will wait for the proper moment to exit. The aim being to maximize the value when we do so. So some funds, and especially if you work with angel investors, individuals who might, for which it's their own personal money, sometimes it can be different. So this is why you need to be careful on your fund selection, and you have to ask yourself also what you want to do with your company. Do you want to keep it until retirement? Would you accept tomorrow morning a $20 million check and just go on retirement? So you have to do that work before coming to us, because this is important that we know where you're going with this, so that we can match also our own exit strategy.
Yeah, that's part of the marketing of your own company, is define what type of exit you're going to promise to your investor. And depending on what your ambition is, whether you want to get listed, whether you want indeed to sell the whole company and take your check, whether you want to replace your current investors by other ones in doing MBOs or equivalent transactions, is of key importance. Now, the strategy that you will have to develop your product and your company needs to be in adequation with this choice. For example, if you intend to get sold, then you'd better not have many collaborations on your products, segmenting your IP and your products and giving it away to many different corporations. Because then, who is going to acquire you, having those links that they cannot remove? If you are doing so, then the only exit you can do is a listing. Vice versa, if you want to do a listing, having collaboration with big names will bring credibility to your business. So there are many types of exit, but the key is to define an adequate strategy to the exit that you're aiming for.
Good. I have a few questions for you guys, because you were left apart, not being the harsh, investment part. So, Bernhard, can you tell us about, what you're developing, the future investment platform that you're developing for the blue economy? Would it be complementary, well, not complementary, would it be in addition of what the venture capitalistic sector is doing? What kind of scopes do you have, for this investment platform?
To be very frank, I from my conversations with quite many companies out there, I personally am convinced that if you're a good company, actually you have access to capital, including in this sector, including those who do things which are unconventional and new. And there's a lot of. They always say that in Europe there is no venture capital market, and I don't think it's actually right. I think there are many philanthropists and investors and venture capitalists who are there. So what we are going to do from a perspective of whether we should spend the money of the European taxpayer or not. We are not in the business of making a profit out of this. We're in the business of actually trying to achieve a societal objective. So what we're going to do is we're basically going to look at this market very, very closely.
But Bernhard, are you saying that you can afford to lose money?
And very comprehensively, and we certainly can't afford to lose money, because what we would be doing is we would be going into a domain that is a commercial domain. So I think that requires a bit of a hard judgment before we do that. And then we see. But one thing I think that is probably useful to do, and that's our next step, is to look at the markets out there very closely, at which companies out there, which ventures out there, what are the investment needs, what's the supply already, and then try to determine whether there are segments like those relating to the circular economy, to a more resource efficient economy, to the protection of the environment and things like that, that would require a sort of intervention on the side of the European Union. If we come to that conclusion, then I think we'll probably be happy to work with some of you, I think, to see how we can do that and benefit from your expertise. So the next thing is really to do a really comprehensive market survey and bring in perhaps some people who know these markets already very well from your practice and see whether they can help us, advise us to see whether we should have a platform that brings in public money into this too.
And what is the horizon for the implementation of this platform?
I think you're asking all the hard questions. I think we should have as an aim to do anything we do before 2020.
Okay, good. Yves, from the Investment Quebec point of view, are you on the same trend? What will be the philosophy? Not being a venture capitalist, what will be the step for you to provide support, to this company, and what will be the kind of cooperation that we can establish between venture capitalists and your institution? What will be the frontier?
Well, we already cooperate every day with financial institutions such as Desjardins and venture capital. I mean, we are in 70 fund of funds. And with regards to financing, well, there's a full range of services. And what we do also in Invest Quebec is, we are responsible to manage some of the Quebec tax incentives that they provide to SME, R&D, for example. I mean, we are able to pre-finance the expenses. I mean, expenses occur during the year, and normally, as you know, you provide your income tax return at the end of the year. It's very difficult to support such a financial cash flow. So we do provide pre-financing on that. So, I mean, it's a full range of services, I believe, that, we work in collaboration with banks.
Highly complementary, because when we provide equity, it leaves the door completely open to debt, and this is where they get in.
That was the aim of my question.
And it's the perfect match.
Okay, so it's a match, yeah, good. Before we close, is there any last recommendation you'll give to our entrepreneurs in the room? And I'm going to start with you, Eric.
Yeah, always think of, you might have a nice project, but is it a good business case, commercially viable and able to provide the expected returns? So think on that aspect, because I'm sure all of you are passionate about what you develop, but go one step further and just make sure first you have a market, a good one, how you can address it, and once you're very confident into this, then you're ready to visit us.
Remember that the success is indeed in having a good strategy, but ultimately the key is the execution of the strategy.
Be prepared when you meet your financial person, a banker or investor. It's like, if you go to an interview, you need to be very well prepared to make that pitch. This is the first impression that is important. When you're prepared, you will convince the people.
No advice from me, but to all of you, good luck.
So, it's important that you still have time, tonight, tomorrow, to connect with our friend on the stage. Even, Bernhard, if he has no advice, is very knowledgeable about, the financial vehicle at the European Commission. So I encourage you to talk to them and to exchange your business card and get prepared, and present a nice, realistic projects. Okay? Thank you very much. Yes?
And one more thing. If you visit somebody and then you want to come back 1 or 2 years later, he will have kept what you presented before.
Not kidding. Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate that, you spend the time with us tonight.